Yep, should be recording on both ends.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Cool. Let me think where to start. Yeah, because I don't exactly know where we left off, like uh, on our last conversation. But I think the idea here is to take bits of the first conversation and then have like a catch up session, which is this conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Makes sense. But I have the same problem. I don't really know where we left off. So I don't know if I just repeat myself constantly now, or maybe, and this would be also interesting, within this year since we spoke last, how much, I don't know, maybe perspective or anything has changed. It's yeah.
yeah,
We'll see.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
you'll probably find out when you edit the whole thing and think, well, come on, in the second part it's the same, the same stuff
No,
like in the first part. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm really interested just in the idea of evolution, like
Yeah.
whether it's from like a philosophical sense or from just uh, an ideological perspective and a humanistic perspective of just like evolution of self,
Right.
and whether
Right.
it's like a conscious sort of thing or whether it's something that you is an unconscious thing. Just seeing where you were from like a year ago till now, I think is probably interesting. And plus, like, I mean, relating this to Dark season two, I'm sure that you have a new perspective on the way that you do cinematography and just the way that you work, and it's probably been informed from just creating just in general. So I guess, I mean, we can talk about that and uh, just evolution in general. Evolution as a person in general, I think, is really interesting.
Right. Right. No, I totally agree. Yeah, it is, and it's one of the great things of actually getting older, getting to know yourself better, and be more focused maybe on certain things. Well, actually, it's evolving over the time, right? So you've been very focused on some things when you've been younger, and now you don't find them so important anymore. So you change to something somewhere else, and that's very interesting and what I really like.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Mm.
I guess then what have been some recent overarching themes that you've seen in yourself that potentially translates into your work?
Maybe I'm not so. Um, well, I'm still pretty hard on myself. It's like just wanting to create the best work that I possibly can, but well, maybe I'm not forcing it so much anymore. I just let it go a little bit more easy and just see how it evolves in front of me, or with my help, obviously. But that's another thing that I think I changed over time. What I really like, because the forcing into something can also be, well, it's very demanding, but it can also not really get you the results. And I think I kind of learned that if you let it just go and go with the flow, as they say, it's just makes the things a little bit kind of like, you might come to the same result, but you be more at ease with yourself and your and the world around, I guess. And I
Mm.
think that's a good thing. So being more in peace, I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
it's interesting to think about that idea of peace because the show Dark is from such a, I guess,
Non-peace.
non-peaceful non-peaceful perspective, but
Not at all.
um
No, no.
yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, it's interesting, like how there's these juxtapositions can be overlapping to where the people potentially working on the project have peace within themselves, but they're tackling this sort of um, subversive subject matter. And I always found that really interesting, just how uh, maybe it's a thing about actually putting it out there and exploring the idea and facing the idea that uh, makes you have some sort of like comfort
Right.
in the perspective or something. But yeah, I'm
It's a
curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is a very interesting thought. I've never really looked at it from this perspective, but maybe the the whole body of work is just such an enormous beast that it needs so much attention from all levels and all shades, that you realize, with you can actually maybe just only tame it if you're calmer with the whole thing. You look more from the outside instead of like jumping right into and fighting like crazy, but just looking from the outside, where is the points that you can actually grab it and and tame it.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. That's I find it's just like it needs so much concentration to follow the story on the first season in 10 episodes, so in 10 hours, and in the second season with 8 hours, to just like follow this very complicated story, and be able to, in my case, give the audience like a string that is kind of like guiding them through the whole 10 or 8 episodes,
Hmm.
giving different um, visual hints where we are in the story, in which time zone we are, what is kind of maybe connected, to think about all this, and then having all the each episode is about 1 day, so which time it is to connect them together, and all the many varied characters. So when you talk about it in any HOD meetings, that everybody's on the same page where we're talking about where we are in the story, what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe it just only can um, be done when you all together are kind of like calmer and just be very focused on what you're doing, but do it all together in a calm way, in a communicating calm way.
Yeah.
Also, I have to say the second season was actually so demanding, and it was also a stressful time, and there was also tension in between the teams sometimes, just because the first season was very successful, more successful than we all expected.
Hmm.
And then for the second season, we definitely wanted to, well, not go under the level that we created, right?
Hmm.
But instead, like being even with the storytelling visually, with us developing as storytellers, as filmmakers, being putting something on top of this. So um, and
Exactly.
and the story itself just like really got stranger and more confusing in a way, but this added also that we kind of like wanted to really make it a great experience.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like I'm curious. So from a cinematographer's perspective, um, specifically from your perspective, working on this show.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, sorry, wait. Oh, I can hear some. There was some like keyboard. What's it called? Um, Interference or something like that. Do you hear that?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Let me restate the question. Um, Yeah, I'm curious from like a cinematographer's point of view, specifically your point of view, like working on the show. And so in season one, do you think that it was that you had a more calculated approach at how you were going to lay out the shots and do the cinematography and everything? And on season two, would you say that you came in with the same sort of approach? Or do you think it was more of you work things out in pre-production to a point and then you kind of have to roll with the punches on set? Like what it was how I guess what I'm trying to say is how has your perspective from season 1 to season 2 on this particular show changed over the course of time? And now that it's behind you, both seasons are out. Have you have you been able to reflect on that and
Mm.
see what you did differently on both?
Um, so for the first season, we've been the first Netflix show in Germany. We wanted to. We had this story in front of us. We wanted to create something big. I would say we've been we wanted to at least definitely make a kind of like a point, right? We wanted to not be any smaller than House of Cards or Bloodline or any other shows that was on Netflix at the time. We wanted to be on eye level with all of them. So there was this big challenge to create something visually stunning. The story itself was already great, but also to meet these standards on other levels, to be bigger than production usually are, especially for TV, but also I guess on some level for cinema, usually in Germany. So that was the big challenge in the beginning, and we had a lot of talks, of course, with visual references. As you can see, Gregory Crutzen, the photographer, is definitely featured somehow in the show with pictures that we looked at, and these crazy moments in
I
time.
can definitely
These
see
kind
that.
of, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said I can definitely see that, especially how
Yeah,
like the sets are constructed.
right. And how the sets are constructed, and also these wide shots where some person is kind of like almost standing as time would stand still in a weird situation. You can't just really make something out of it, but just your head is spinning. What is happening to this person? So that was all kind of like how we started out, how we discussed about how we're going to lay out the first season. And while we've been shooting it, we realized some things work very well, and we continued from there. And when we put the whole show together at the end, or when I saw it again in the grading process, then we did our tweaks in how we're gonna kind of like put the different times where people now are together, how we slightly, with subtle, but still there, how we kind of like get the audience into a better feeling of where they are in the story.
Hmm.
Um, so this was again taken over into the second season. The second season was a little bit different because the first season was all very moody. It was all in autumn time, rainy and bad weather of most parts. The second season was very different because it was in summer, so everything should be sunny and kind of like feeling a little bit more um, open and sunny and nice and fluffy in a way, but um, there's also this Gregory Crutzen series, what I want to refer to now with the name of it's between Beneath the Roses. So you see these beautiful photographies of flowers, but on the bottom of these flowers, on the ground, there's, for example, a fox that is kind of like a dead body that is
Hmm.
kind of like melting into the earth, where the little maggots are eating away, and the fur is just falling apart and things. So you have the beauty on top of it, but beneath it's everything just kind of rotten. And the same is in a way true for dark. So you would have the nice weather, everything would be nice, and then find, people could live in peace with their families, but just something under the surface, things are rotten and bad, and they kind of like crawl back in their houses and close their curtains.
Hmm.
Um, and so this was the topic actually for the second season. On top of it, the more kind of like Tarkovsky-esque world of where everything is
Nice.
bad, and after the big catastrophe, like everything that is in the faraway future, where the power plant exploded, and how people now kind of like um, yeah, trying to make a
Hmm.
living every day. So we had
Hmm.
all these extremes in this, right? And that itself was just a lot of fun to shoot, but it's kind of also a big involvement of the story in the beginning with all the exposition, and then going into this, like where the story is kind of like spreading out more, right? Rooting in the different into different parts. Um, so I guess the way we shot it at the end was, there was, I think the way we shot it and the way we wanted to kind of like um, plan out it, or how we planned it out, and how it should be cut together at the end. was something that was involved in how we worked in the first season. But I think in the second season, with the way how we worked was just like all um, defined better, and we tried to be more precise in certain things. The way I did work on this show was very different in terms of pre-created LUTs that I put into the certain scenes, so that everybody on board, whether it be Netflix in LA or the production company who is partly in Munich, also in a different part of Germany, or everybody is involved in this, had an idea of where we're going to, how it's going to look, how the different times are, if it's more bluish, more greenish, more whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like my idea beforehand, to get even a better understanding where the story should lead to.
Yeah.
Um, so in a way, you can say this is also the psychological effect on the whole thing, to be more defined in it.
Mm-hmm.
That was important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I like that sort of metaphor that you gave about Gregory Crewdson work and that sort of beauty and decay that exists within complicated pieces of artwork. Uh, that sort of, um, I think you gave an example of a rose, and then
yeah,
or the fox, and the decay that's involved with like a decomposing corpse, essentially.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I find that the most interesting works, at least the ones that I find interesting, have a good balance of both, and also there's a certain relatability um, between those sort of like emotional complications,
yeah.
Um, but I also wanted to ask, so, and I don't want to I don't want to like butcher his name,
Yeah,
but so please tell me if I'm saying it wrong. But Baran Bo Odar,
yeah.
is
So
that how you,
he usually calls himself, and we all call him Bo. So from Baran, he's actually Baran, his
Baran?
first name. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Baran Bo Odar. But did I say
Yes.
that correctly?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So let me just restate the question so it'll
Yeah.
be easy to cut to. But yeah, so I wanted to ask about your relationship, collaborative relationship with Baron Bo Odar, the director of the show. Um,
Yeah.
how, because you've worked on multiple projects with him at this point.
Yes.
Who am I? Uh, I might pronounce some of these incorrectly, but Unter der Sonne,
Unter der Sonne. Yeah. Under the sun. Yes.
yeah, Under the Sun, uh, and I guess because I'm really interested in understanding, like, especially like intimate, like very close collaborations, like
Yeah.
how that functions and how that evolves over time, and how these sort of conversations you grow from it, and that informs the work, especially if you're working in a collaborative, very close knit collaborative partnership. So I'm just wondering, like, how your guys' relationship has like grown over time, and how that's influenced the work.
Yeah, so we met in film school. He was in classes. He was a little bit ahead of me, and he was looking for a cinematographer for his exam films. And I had the same thing. I was looking for someone to shoot my exam film with. So we partnered up, and out came this film Under the Sun, who kind of like exposed us to the film world out there, and actually gets pretty good responses so far, or at the time. And then we did our first commercial film, what was called The Silence. What Yeah, even more people were interested, and he got an American agent out of this. There was another work, then Who Am I? What's even more recognition, and then after this came a work that we didn't do together. He did a Hollywood movie, and I did another feature film for Netflix. So we worked with other people. Um, for his part, he actually wanted to have me on the show, but the studio didn't allow to. Um, anyway, we partnered up again afterwards. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, I'm
Okay, sorry,
listening.
my computer shut it down. So, yeah, after this we partnered up again for the Netflix show. So our history goes back quite a bit, and quite a couple of projects. And um, Bo is one of the most visual directors I worked with so far. He has a background. He actually wanted to become a painter, so he was also studying for over a year in Barcelona, arts and painting.
Mm,
And then he just, I guess it was a little bit, he liked movies, and he then signed up for, or he applied for a film school, and they took him. And that's how it all started. But he never kind of like, obviously the visuality that is inside of you, you can't get rid of it. So he always was
mm,
practicing. He always was drawing, and drawing comics, and also photography,
mm,
and things. So he was always interested in these things. With me, it's kind of like, I think it was just the good thing that we had for in the beginning. He realized that the visuality that I bring on board is actually very close to his own idea of, or his own way of seeing, and the way, or his own way of feeling. Um,
mm,
and I think over the projects, I can say for myself, I definitely grew visually very much. Obviously, with you, if you're working with it every day, and um, you you come to points where you're just like, you feel, I can't get any further, or I can't. Um, I don't know how to execute what I actually wanted to. You watch other people's work, you understand them, you create again, you fail, you create again, and from all this, from constantly working, you get better and better, and you actually understand much better what you want, and actually how to get to this point. So I think that was just my way, but in the conversations that we have in the films, or the books, or the photographers that we kind of like shared, or pointed out to one another, you still realize, okay, that you get out of your kind of like visual bubble in a way, right? You just like see where what other people are doing, and you kind of
mm,
like strengthen your own visuality. And through the project that we did together, we can like, it was, I always had the feeling, you have an idea, and then the other partner comes and puts, yeah, that's great, but what if we put it this way? And then you say, well, I'm not so sure, can we do it this way and that way and that way? And so, and then the idea that is maybe starts somehow basic, evolves into something bigger and bigger, or better, or more defined, and it feels like, one is always taking the other person on the shoulder, and once you're standing on the shoulder, you pull the other one up on your own shoulder again. So it's getting
mm.
kind of like bigger in a way. So
Yeah.
that's how I would describe it. So it
Mm,
can be very challenging. He's very demanding in actually what he wants, what he expects from me. But that, on the other hand, is a great challenge, and
mm.
meets in a way also the expectations that I have, you know, on myself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like, yeah, I think about this a lot in terms of creative partnerships, and like especially people that you work with so closely. Just the like how to overcome certain challenges,
Mm.
and when challenges present itself, like how do you deal with those situations? And sometimes, I mean, a lot of times I just think about certain things as projections. We have this sort of
Yeah.
internal monologue, and then that we think about ourselves, and then that is projected onto the way that we see things, which in as a result is, if you are an artist, or if you, whatever medium you use, it is put into your film project, or your painting, or your whatever, insert medium.
Yeah. I
And
think it's
yeah.
very important, the exchange with I think I really believe in partnership, especially if you're coming into a film background, where you just can't do it on your own, right? It's just not possible. Even if you want to, even if you're the greatest mastermind or whatever, you always need to have people around you that actually get the ideas that you have, well, into the medium, what it is, the film camera, or the onto the, well, in a painting it's a little bit different, but if it's such a medium you like filmmaking, you just need the other people. And
Yeah.
the better you can communicate with them, the better you actually can communicate with them without saying everything, but they just understand you. You know, it's a lot of like the
Hmm.
gut feeling. And with, if you have people around you that understand you without explaining everything, that's a real plus.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
definitely.
think
I mean,
if you have
mhm.
this, and you see it in a lot of directors, cinematographers relationships, or also with the production designers or costume designers, or so, if they have this, they just don't want to give it away so easily, because it's just so hard, I guess, to find these, let's call it soulmates in the professional, um, in the professional life, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like yeah, I mean, and it's kind of it's very special to have one or two even like soulmates that you can carry through on your entire career. And yeah, some things might change, and maybe you work on a film that the other person doesn't, or they work on a film that the other person doesn't. And
Yeah,
um but the idea of it's very rare, it's rare, and it's a really cool thing to be able to evolve and grow with the people around you that you consider to be dear in your life, and that's also with those sort of like unspoken like soul connections.
yeah, yeah,
uh that's I mean, even in like personal relationships, like a someone that you love
yeah.
romantically. um there's reasons why certain relationships don't work out and others do. And I don't know, it's just an interesting exchange of energy that can't really be put into words,
No,
you
that's
know
absolutely right. Yeah, I think so. It's also with, you meet people over time, and then with some of them you haven't seen them for a while, you haven't communicated in a while, no text, no social media or anything, but you meet this particular person again, and you just can start the conversation, or be, as close as you have been these few years back when you saw the person the last time. And with other people, you just saw them the last time 2 weeks ago, and you stand in front of one another, and you just don't really have anything to say. Also, you had an intense time maybe before then, right?
hmm
And this is, I guess, romantically in a way, but maybe even more like on a just like a friendship level, or
hmm
also work relationship level. Yeah. So I think it is something very special if you find partners where you really connect with in life, and in your artistic life and your professional life. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
something that is very, very valued and cherished, or should be.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think the more that you have uh, a sense of gratitude for those relationships and those people, I think that is the most important. And I think that is uh, having just gratitude in your life in general, like true gratitude, not just this shallow sort of
Yeah.
gratitude uh, where you feel it from a very visceral sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole purpose of life, you
Well, yeah.
know?
No, absolutely,
Uh,
definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
also something, when you have this, or when you're striving for it. It's, I guess, when you can be at one point at ease, at the other point it can be very overwhelming, or also these strong feelings if something is not working out right, if the breakups are, or some pain that is happening through a person that you feel very close, that can be very, turn you upside down. And there's also maybe a force for creating something else then out of it, or yourself is just of like renewing itself because of these intense feelings, that there are out of it. I don't know
Yeah.
if this makes sense, but
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I know. I mean, I know we're talking like pretty abstract, and but like,
mm,
yeah, no, I mean, I totally, yeah, I totally understand that.
mm,
Sometimes I think when there's like traumatic experiences, just in general, just talking about traumatic experiences in general
yeah,
that occur, it's good to give yourself some distance away from that because it's really hard for us to see outside of ourselves, especially when we're in the thick of it, whatever it may be, right?
yeah,
So sometimes you need distance to be able to dissect um, what really went on there, and the thing that you might have thought was like you were right about something, maybe in like 6 months your perspective changes and say, oh, I was actually wrong in that situation, or and but I think at
yeah.
the end of the day too, just giving yourself and giving other people forgiveness as well, you know uh I know we're kind of
Well,
like talking broad strokes about things, but yeah, it's
no, I
like
mean,
pretty,
I mean,
yeah.
I personally would totally agree with you. You know, it's just like I guess my personality is also like, let it go at one point and just like let the other person and whatever happened in the situation or the traumatic um, uh, happening at this time, just let it go and just accept it as it was. But other people would say, also very much, I guess, in the artistic world, they would say just like, no, 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 actually this pain and this anger
Mm,
is are the things that are, driving me to, or my way of dealing with things is kind of like living living them out through my artwork. So I need the pain and I need the sadness or the grief or
mm,
sorrow or everything. Yeah, but me personally, I'd rather be the other way. It's just like,
yeah.
um, instead of
No,
like
me too.
constantly
Me.
living in this past with all this anger and sadness or whatever it is. Yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm more on uh I mean, I'm more I feel like more on the perspective of what you're talking about, like having an overarching sense of peace and like
yeah,
a foundation of peace, but exploring these different sort of feelings from like an outsider's perspective and trying to figure out what you can learn from
yeah,
it, and hopefully that you can allow yourself to be a conduit to be able to put those feelings and emotions because you felt them and you understand them to an extent, but maybe for instance in dark, maybe you might be able to channel that through your medium, because you understand those sort of complicated emotions and feelings, um, and that sort of translates in the way that you know how to translate it through your artwork.
right. Well, this is in a way, I don't know if this is the European way or so, or maybe it's German, but these kind of
Uh-huh.
stories, like Dark It Is, with all these dark parts in it, and sometimes also rain. Maybe we, as a whole country, we are more the, well, I don't know. It's like maybe it's a little bit too much generalization here, but um, are we maybe a little bit more half a glass half empty than half full in a way?
Mm,
So we're
mm-hmm.
more drawn to this kind of like stories. The Scandinavians also are a little bit like this. If you look at their stories and their series and their films and their books and all these things, or
Yeah,
paintings or everything. So I'm not sure. So there's might be some depression onto us. Maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the climate, maybe it's something that is just like, I don't know, our upbringing of generations and generations and all the badness that also happens around us sometimes.
sure,
Um,
yeah.
but coming back to Dark and me personally, I think it's just like, because I relate to this kind of like, I not to the story, but I understand some of the characters' motivations and perspectives onto other persons and the way they communicate.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, or yeah, I want to say about myself that I'm more like a psychological cinematographer. So I need to understand what the scene is about, what the relationship of the people is about, that I can actually execute what I'm doing as a cinematographer, instead of just
Mm,
like saying, all right, um, it's 6 o'clock at night. This should be this and this lighting here, and these could be the setups that we have, and da 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 da. Um, I I really want to understand the scene better. Yes, of course, of the lightning mood in a way it can be determined from the outside world, like 6 o'clock and sunshine or whatever. But I think in the constellation, how the people are, where they are in the room, and how then this all could be put into frames. I think that's I know this is a very important part for me. And of course, the director very often does a rehearsal, um, and then might figure out where the constellations are or where this all takes
Hmm.
place. But
Yeah.
I kind of like always want to bring myself in with making a suggestion, maybe, or um, turning the scene together with the director into frames to actually, you know, get his idea of the whole thing, the script idea of the scene into a better frame and put it all together. What is the
Yeah.
constellation of the people? Are they with in a frame together? Are they over shoulders or not? Are they each in a single? Are they? Where's the wide shot? How is this executed? I think this is very important for me, and I really like this part of the job. But it's also in a way I realized when I have directors who don't, well, I didn't have so many, but who don't really understand the scene
Hmm.
themselves, I feel a little bit lost, because I have
Mm.
my idea about it. But if the director says, no, no, I don't want this, then I'm putting the camera here or there, whatever he then at the end likes or she likes. But I feel a little bit lost of what I actually want to bring into this thing and want to support um, their ideas, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, yeah, it sounds like you like to approach work in general uh, from like a connected point of view. Like you want to be connected to the story, you want to understand
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
psychology of the characters, you want to understand the reason why you're setting this shot up. Should it be close up? Maybe it's maybe we, throw like a I don't know. I'm just gonna throw an example out there, like some sort of like wide angle lens really close to the person's face, and then that provokes some sort of emotion, or so. But I'm curious, like at what point, because there's a point when you're starting out and you're starting to understand technically how lighting works, how what color temperature means, what
Yeah.
what lenses, how they affect like the bokeh, the this and that, and how that plays in the mood and stuff. But when did you realize that you were a psychological, like that you want to be more psychologically connected to the story?
Um, that's a good question. I think I maybe I realized a few years back, but I might have had some, you know, now that I think it back, maybe I could have realized it much earlier because of the
Hmm.
struggles that you have with some directors who don't have really the vision that they wanted to have, or they
Hmm.
really don't know what the story is about, or all these things, and you're kind of like arguing with them about the scenes, or in the pre-production you kind of like you feel already there's just no strong idea that you're kind of like following with, but there's just something loosey goosey what is kind of like you're trying to get into a film and into a format or so.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely always yeah, interested in the psychological part of the story. That's also the stories that I'm reading now with the success of now especially Dark. I'm getting more and more screenplays, also international stuff, and there's really great things, great screenplays where you what I really would say, oh, I'm really absolutely relating to this
Hmm.
um, to these stories. And others there's just like I can't really, because I don't see this the I can't follow the story in there, because I don't really see anything. And then when you talk with the director or so, you don't really see that they have a vision that they
Hmm.
can kind of like convince you with what they want to say.
Yeah.
I find this, yeah, I find this sometimes a little bit frustrating actually, or sad. So and on other ones you just think like, oh god, there's just so much more than I actually thought about it, and this is just like would be so great to collaborate on this one, because I really feel there's a strong connection not only to the story but also to the director, what he or she is saying, or what her focus on something is. This
Mm.
yeah, I find this very very attractive on my job.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's
mm,
interesting.
right.
Yeah, oh sorry, I'm just gonna let this pat. Do you hear that in the
Yeah,
background?
yeah, yeah.
I'm in I'm in our space and
Oh, in the art space, in the, yeah, exhibition
yeah,
room.
yeah, I'm in the art space, and there's always it's downtown, so there's always
Yeah, I love this place.
this time.
I'm really thinking about it a lot, where we've been in the corner. So every time I listen to one of your podcasts, I'm thinking about, oh, how they must now sit around this table there in the corner,
Oh yeah.
with people walking by in front of their big shop windows.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's so strange. There's
Yeah, but I find it so creative. No, not creative. I don't know. So great. Yeah, just you sit in there, and people walking by, they're looking inside, and you doing your thing, and they can't disturb you really. Well, maybe if they make faces, but other than this, they are just outside in the outside world, and you are inside in this kind of like cozy. Yeah, it is like a bubble, right?
yeah, it's really
Very.
interesting. It's almost like the out the outdoors is our aquarium
Yeah,
almost
yeah, right,
because
right.
there's so many strange things that go on in downtown Skid Row, Little Tokyo, in this area right here, and
Yeah,
just so many like strange and interesting people. Yeah, it's a interesting social experiment, I guess. I don't know. I think of a lot of things as social experiments, though. I mean, this podcast is kind of like a social experiment in a way, and
right.
um,
Definitely. Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, thanks for taking the time, out of your day to do this, and um, yeah, I really value this conversation and having you on the podcast.
No, I really absolutely am happy about it, really, because but I have listened to a lot of them. It all started when Saman told me some time ago, when I met him in LA. Oh, I would have feel really bad if I would just let you go without having you interviewed for this, and I for Dark at the time, or for have this podcast with you. And I've never done anything like this before, so I was kind of like nervous in a way, and started listening to what this is actually all about. What am I expecting here? And I listened to cinematographer to cinematographer. So I listened to the one
Hmm.
that you did with Isaac Bauman.
Yeah,
What I found very interesting, the podcast itself I found interesting. Also Isaac, because he's just such an interesting personality, right? So the whole thing was very interesting. So I and this was in the afternoon when we had actually our podcast, when I met you guys down uh,
in the space.
in the gallery, yeah, the art space.
Yeah,
And then I also listened to the other one where he was interviewing the photographer. What I found also so very interesting, also the perspective, how these different people looked at their artwork or communicating and everything. So um, then we had our interview, and since then I've been just a regular listener, and I've just find it very interesting also to other parts, like painting. I always like painting. I go to exhibitions and look at paintings, but I have
yeah,
never been a painter, and I can't really paint very well. But or other artists, I find it so very interesting to listen to their stories, listen to what drives them, and also actually their fears and their fear of failing, and the respect that they have towards their work, in a way, maybe this
hmm,
beast or whatever is there in front of it, and how critical they are with themselves. And I can I see this all in myself. Also, I think when we talked last time, there was the thing, I think we talked about being an artist or not, and I was saying, well, I'm not really sure if I'm an artist. And maybe this had to do with just like, because I'm not creating solely on my own. I'm
mm,
always depending on a story and also a director, and I'm kind of like feeling that I'm serving is maybe the wrong word, but I'm supporting. Let's say supporting the director's story with my visuality.
hmm,
And is this already artistic? Because again, I'm not only creating on my own, like what is inside of me that needs to be expression in some form of artwork, but
yeah,
now, and this is maybe also an involvement, now, sometime later, I think more about myself as an artist than I did at the time, because of what I'm bringing into the whole thing. That is, in some ways, also personally, right? Another cinematographer on
Yeah.
the show would have done it differently, but with my feelings and the way I grew up and everything that I bring with me, all the failure that I had and all the gains that I got out of it. This is what you can see in this work at the time,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Mhm. No,
So
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I have a couple of things that I'd like to add to what you're saying, but I think the more that we tap into what I like to call the unique genius and
yeah,
understand that you have it in you, this sort of these unique perspectives and these different things that you've been through, and it make it's and have confidence that you have some sort of story, whether it's
yeah,
you're born in Germany or the US, or and different perspectives going all around. You have it in you to be able to tell those stories, and hopefully you can find a medium to convey those messages and those stories. And I mean, just looking at your work in particular, I think you have this sort of painterly esque approach to uh cinematography, and that's your painting. You are a painter, but you're a cinematographer, if that makes sense.
right,
You are an artist. So
yeah,
but yeah, I think like, yeah, it's really interesting. Some people come at it more of like a psychological perspective, and like and this sort of overarching question of why am I doing something, or what does this mean, and these sort of like existentialist ideas. Or
yeah,
some people come into the perspective more and relate with the world more as like technicians, or
yeah, yeah,
um, so but I think neither is necessarily better than the other, but I think the unique genius part comes into play, where it's understanding where you fit into that, or where or how your perspective uh unique, you
yeah.
know?
Definitely, definitely. I think so too. This is, you know, as you say, there's no right or wrong in the way, where you're coming from, or what you bring into the table. But I feel just about myself that this is kind of like how I see it. Meanwhile, some time ago I would have said more that I'm a technician, and more now I'm just saying, well, maybe there are some other parts there,
Hmm.
very strongly also in there.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to be a technician to be a cinematographer,
No,
but
they
that
are.
doesn't mean, you have to understand like uh I don't I don't know, like what lights do what and this and that. You can't be completely uninformed about
No,
that,
you no, you can't. Yeah,
but that's your toolbox. You have a great understanding of your toolbox, and that's also why I was asking about at what point did you realize that you come at your work from more of a psychological approach, because you have to there's a sort of like naive perspective where you
mm.
can just create, and you have to be a little naive to want to create, because if you're like, oh, I can't do it, I can't light as good as that, or I can't do this or that proficiently, then you might not do it at all. So you have to kind of think that you're pretty good even when you're not good, when you're beginning, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this is the
Yeah.
things, if you look up to other people's work and you say like, oh, I'm not never be going to be this good, that's just absolutely holding you back, and you never be, anywhere close to good because you
Yeah.
never did anything. So no, definitely. And but this is also, I guess, yeah, with I was in a lot of perspectives of my artistic life. I was very lucky, I have to say. And one of the things was, for example, that I started maybe late. Maybe there was a good thing in sometimes I'm now think, well,
When did you start?
um, I uh, I studied economics before, and then I was 25. I just was saying, well, I need to do something different. So I stopped studying economics, and um, kind of like started as an intern, as an electrician intern on a film set. And from there on, it grew, and I was at RA and did internship in their rental house, and then went out as a camera assistant, went back to the lighting because I realized that being a camera assistant has nothing to do really with, um, uh, oh, has not so much to do with actually camera. And I wanted to learn more about light to become you know, later a cinematographer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is how it started, but this was with when I started was 25, and I went to film school when I was 28. So I was
Mm.
finished with, I did my first commercial film, like the feature film, with 35, I think it was. So it was compared to other, the young guns, if you look at them now they're 25 and doing their first feature film, or 30, you know, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything, because you have, sometimes you feel like you don't really, or do you have your career in your own hand, or it's just happening somehow with you kind of like going through different doors at different times? You meet
Yeah.
certain people, and you maybe go a certain way that leads you then into the feature film world, or it brings you into the commercial world, or it kind of like you're stuck then with maybe some bad TV things, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or corporate
Yeah.
films. Is this
Yeah.
something that you're, do you have it in your own hand? In my way, in my how to say it, in my way, in my
Uh-huh.
in my case.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh
No,
god.
it's okay.
In my
Uh,
case, I would say I was pretty lucky, um, because after my, so I did Under the Sun. What a lot of people say, oh, it looks great. It looks so very different than anything in Germany, and what you did is just really a great work. I was nominated for the German Camera Award with this thing. Then we did our first, but nothing happened out of it. You know, there's nobody came and nobody wanted to work with me or anything. So then
mm-hmm.
I think it was a couple of years later, 2009, I think, we did Under the Sun. No, I'm sorry, The Silence. And again, people said, "Oh, it looks amazing, and what you did is enormous. 1.5 million budget, and you just, it looks so great and crazy and everything."
Mm-hmm.
But nothing happened out of it. There were a
Mm.
couple of commercials, but you know, bread and butter stuff. There was nothing really coming out of like no offers, feature
Hmm.
films, TV, anything really. And I was really frustrated. And I found it so unfair, you know, how the people say to me that it's, well, not fair, but I couldn't really believe anything, right? The people say, "Wow, it's so great what you did, you know, perfect." But
Yeah.
nobody was interested in working with me, or just meeting up with me to see, well, what kind of guy is he actually? You know, is he a nice
Mm-hmm.
person? Could I eventually at one point work with this person? Nobody did. So, you know, you, that kind of like grounds you very much. You can't get really, you know, anywhere high in the sky with your thoughts or so, because, well, you're just like, nobody wants to work with you. And
Yeah.
then Who Am I came, and suddenly people, you know, had my name on the plate, and they were interested in working with me. But um, I was now that a little bit more, you know, patient about it, or more at ease,
Mm.
or didn't just put so much thoughts in it, what you know, what's now happening and how my career is evolving. So I was
Mm.
pretty relaxed about it. And now with all the success that is coming, and with people that want to talk to me, and agents calling, and do you want to change, or also just like being in Skype meetings with bigger directors or anything, or meeting them when I was in LA, and just like going from the studios and being at lunches and dinners with people. It's, you know, you just like more grounded, instead of like totally freaking out every time you're sitting in front of one of these great persons that you look up to,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
that have kind of like a body of work. You're just like sitting there and you be yourself, and this actually gets you even further, because you be yourself and you're not the nervous wreck in front of
Yeah.
them, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 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 You're
biting
just like,
biting fingernails and everything. It's just like, you know. So
yeah.
that was a lucky part. I remember that before Who Am I was so desperate in just doing, working on something like a film or anything. I was in this meeting with he was a TV director for a we call this like pre-night TV. So it's like these, it's cheesy TV as can be. So
Hmm.
TV where people eat their dinner in front of it but don't pay any attention. It doesn't matter what's happening. It's not kind of
Yeah.
like a story that is in any way proper executed. The actors aren't good and or anything. So I meet up with him. Was so desperate that I really wanted to do it just for the sake of doing something. And then
When was that?
that was 2012 or so,
Oh, okay. Oh,
or
okay.
yeah, or 13.
Hmm.
Before Who Am I?
Yeah.
And he said, well, nah, he doesn't want to work with me because I'm not experienced enough. And well, if I look again at the time, I was pretty frustrated. I was thinking, what is happening? You know, why not even for this shitty TV that I certainly didn't look or watch at the time? And I was, it's not that anything that you would be really proud of it, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to make anything, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I was frustrated at the time, but if I look back at it now, and if you look at my body of work, I'm proud of every work that is in there. There's nothing where I'm kind of like ashamed of, or nothing that I'm
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I'm not so sure about it. There's work in it that I'm more proud of, and that I like better than other work. But I stand behind all of the work that I did, while I have cinematography colleagues who just like take on every job that they can get. And it's not that they need money because they need to feed the family or anything. They just also they want to work, and they are afraid that if they don't do this work, maybe they never work again. You know, you
Yeah.
had invited a couple of artists that also had this kind of like feeling that they need to work and they can't
Hmm.
take work down. But if you look at their CVs, it's just all totally watered down. Also, they did a couple of great feature films, but because of all the bad TV stuff that they did, or also the bad executed for whatever reason feature films, they're not taken as seriously as maybe I am, just for less work, but better work. And very often not because I chose not to work on other stuff, but
Hmm.
I don't know, is it fate or what? I don't know. It just happened to me that it is this way, and
Yeah.
now I'm very happy with this, and I'm now in a much better position, and now I'm very carefully would take the work that I really want to do, and I'm not
Hmm.
doing any work that there is just for the sake of doing it. You know?
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, that's really, really fascinating because, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at your timeline right now. So, Under the Sun was in 2006. The
Hmm.
Silence was in 2010. And then you said in between that time was 2012 when you got potentially, or you had that meeting for
Yeah,
that kind of quote unquote shitty, or
yeah,
you didn't say that, but that general TV thing.
yeah.
And then 2014 was Who Am I? And now 2017 through 2000, now 2019, you're working on Dark. So I think, and it doesn't always happen like that. And there's just like sometimes just random happenstance that you didn't work on that TV show and this and that. But I think it's, we always have to have these checks and balances that things will work out, uh, and it's a long road ahead. If you're an artist, uh, whatever kind of medium, it's a long road ahead. And I think with film, there's more of like direct ways where you can make money as opposed to
Mm,
like a painter, for instance.
yeah,
So there's a need for a cinematographer to shoot a commercial and this and that, but
yeah,
um
yeah,
so it's also kind of like the balance between art and commerce and understanding where you stand in that sort of spectrum,
yeah,
but then also understanding like just the vast landscape of how you want to construct your career, and um and sometimes you're not in control of it, so you have to allow yourself to let go of expectation and control. It's very
yeah.
complicated, but you can only really reflect in hindsight. Right. So
True, absolutely, yeah. Well, at the time, I didn't think this way. Now I do, and now I can look back at it and say, "Oh, what a lucky guy I am!" Right?
yeah,
But at the time, it was certainly very painful, and you know,
yeah,
you think like, well, maybe I should just do something else. Maybe just I am not made for this. Or the many times that I was thinking, well, like, well, can I? Well, it's I've never been down that badly that I didn't have any money, that I couldn't eat anything or so. But there was always something to be done. But I'm just getting frustrated of not being able to to do the work that I wanted to do. And I guess
yeah,
when young cinematographers or young film students or so ask me what it is and how it is in the film business or what they can do and everything, I think is you need to be prepared that you have to be very patient, and
mm,
that it's not, there are people out there but it's happening just very very fast, but they're not the norm. And there are enough examples out there when it just happens more or less overnight, but then it's not an overnight success, but like a 20 or 10, 15 years overnight success.
yeah. It just seems like it's overnight, but
Right.
also if there's uh, having overnight success, like at a very young age when you're not ready for that, could be very detrimental to you, to your psyche, and you psychologically too,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you're getting all these
Absolutely.
rewards and then you expect to get these rewards. And then when suddenly those rewards aren't there, then you're wondering why people aren't coming to you for, I don't know, whatever it may be. So I think it's just like trying to step outside of yourself every once in a while and understand that there are so many things, there's so many variables that you
Mm.
can really only control the way that these variables are put onto you,
Yeah.
and control your response. And it's really hard and it's kind of romantic to be able to say that every single time and for it to actually stick. Um, but yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm really curious. Uh, so during those times when you felt this sort of existential dread,
Yeah.
I want to call it,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It
to
was.
when you, yeah. This existential. So yeah, let's go with that. This existential dread when you felt, oh, I feel really lost and uh, I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe I should switch careers. What did you do to make yourself not switch careers?
Well, that's a good question. I I think in a way deep inside of me, I wanted, no, well, yeah, yeah, I wanted it to happen, and I kind of like strongly deep inside of me was thinking that I can make it, and there is a place for me here. Um, and maybe I just, yeah, I think it's whenever I was on the lowest point, something would happen where maybe I then didn't get back on level, on base level or
Mm-hmm.
so, but at
Mm-hmm.
least I wasn't so low in my thoughts about the whole business or myself or whatever. So
Yeah.
you kind of like balance this out a little bit, and then next time it goes down again, something else came along, um, and again, all the projects that have been there, really, I learned a lot from. I um, or I learned also what I don't like, and this is also very important. Maybe that's even more important than the other stuff. What you don't like, what you where you don't want to be put into again, so you
Mm-hmm.
avoid this and you grow from there or so. I don't know,
Mm.
but yeah. And at one
Yeah.
point, it just like it went up, and just like, put me, I guess, where I am at this moment. But I also have to say that because of all this, what I experienced when I was a younger cinematographer or a younger artist, or just younger in my career,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also now I'm very happy about the success that I have, or people coming towards me and actually want to talk to me and are interested in me and my personality or my work and things. I'm also very sensitive about that. This is a, a peak that I'm at now, and
Mm. Mm-hmm.
it can also go down again. So I'm not celebrating this extremely and being not more happy than it would be healthy actually for it. What is also, I guess, something that I learned the few years back when I was not so happy at the time
Mm-hmm.
about my
Yeah.
career. And I think that,
Yeah.
again, this is very important because I certainly would have been one of these personalities as well. That it would be, if the success would have come too early to me, it wouldn't have been healthy for me.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I
Mm,
totally, yeah, I mean, I could totally understand that. I think, you know, what I think is, especially if you're in a career within film, for instance,
mm,
to understand the peaks and valleys, and to be able to not, and also to have a healthy ego about that, um and if you can look at it from an outside perspective, then that can inform you, and also you carry that sort of, those sort of energy into different conversations, different meetings, and different,
mm,
so you resonate energy. So um yeah, I think that it's just really good to be aware of all that stuff, and
yeah,
yeah. But anyways, man, I could talk to you for hours, man. Like,
that was great. Yeah, that's um,
yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Let me see. I'll do one more question.
yeah, sure.
Uh, do you have any advice for artists that are young in their career, or they're striving for some sort of, um, they want to pursue a career in the arts? Do you have any advice for those people?
Well, first of all, I think you just should do it. If you feel it and you feel it very strongly, you should just go and do it. And maybe, so first of all, don't listen to what everybody else says. You know,
Hmm.
um, but then you also have to find, in a way, listen. Or maybe,
You
maybe,
can you can
maybe,
you can take your time. You can take some
maybe I
time
should.
if you
Yeah.
want.
No, I'm
I
just
didn't mean to,
what
put you on the spot.
no, I was just thinking because of, I guess that some people, and I realized this from my mom. My mom wanted to be a ballet dancer. My grandmother always said to her, "You can't," and this just like jumping around there is just no real profession, or there's nothing good, and no, you're not doing this, and blah blah blah. So she was kind of like her whole life suffering that she never really have been able to be a ballet dancer. Maybe she wouldn't have been good, and maybe their career would never been a career. Maybe it was just like out of, I don't know, dance lesson classes or so. This would be the whole thing, and they would have never gotten any further. But because of this experience that her mother said constantly no, she never did it, and she was suffering her whole life in a way from it that she never could actually do it. So in a way, I think it's important that if you want to be an artist, that you don't listen to other people and you just try it. And if you then realize, well, that's not for me, or I'm not good enough or whatever, then maybe, well, you have to be also honest enough to yourself to just like let it go, I
Mm.
guess. But I don't know if this is an advice that you
No,
should give.
that's great.
Yeah,
That's great. No, I think that's great advice. Yeah. Understanding that people have their sort of projections, and especially when it's your parents, it's really hard
yeah,
to not take that as advice, or to not be affected rather by that. Um, those sort of insecurities, like
right,
ballet dancing. Oh, ballet dancing is not really a career, so blah blah blah, whatever.
yeah,
Uh,
Well, that's a hard thing, but I guess what is also very
Yeah.
important that you kind of like also this has been said a lot of times. You like you find your inner voice, and I mean it in a way like you need to listen to your gut a lot, and to I think you have as an artist in some way an autopilot inside of you that you need to find and then just like go with it instead of like fighting in some certain ways or striving after something that somebody else did and compare
Mhm.
yourself constantly with the other artists that you look up to, and you
Mhm.
find your own kind of like listen to your guts and find your own kind of like voice of what you want to what you want to say and what you want to tell. And in my way as a cinematographer of how you know the stories that are interesting to you with what kind of like personalities as directors or producers you want to work with and work together with them to create something, um, yeah, and find these collaborators and partners to go full circle with where we started. You know, hopefully you'll be able to find someone that you are very close with your creative idea or your visual idea, to create something meaningful or special or maybe only entertaining, but something that is you know fulfills you.
Hmm.
Mm.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate all the advice.
I hope it's really a good advice. When I started with this, and you always think about these young students
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
sitting in
feel
front of you and looking up at you with big eyes. So
yeah,
like
yeah.
my little son is doing, and you just explain these things, and they look at you, and I'm not so sure whether they think now, oh, he's totally crazy. You know what is going on with him, or just they actually can take something out of this advice. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah. No, I think yeah, it's funny because now uh you feel responsible
Right. Exactly. That's
for
exactly
the
it.
things you say. Yeah, yeah. You're like, oh, I don't want to take responsibility,
Right.
because I think you also realize that you are growing and evolving, and that everything that you say isn't the end all be all, right?
Right.
You
So
know, we're
if
all
you
infallible in certain ways,
right, and if you listen back to it in a few years or decades, you think like, oh, really? Did I say
Yeah.
this? And this was an advice? Oh God.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I
Well,
think that's what the beautiful thing about interviews is, especially like uh ones that are so candid like this one, or
yeah,
so it's like a conversation, is that you can look back on it like a year or two from now, and you'll be like, oh wow, I have a totally different perspective now. And
yeah, yeah.
or you
That's
might have a very similar perspective, or it may come full circle, and 10 years from now you're like, uh I went through a change for that 5 years after, and
right.
then 5 years after that, and then now I'm coming full circle, and
Yeah,
I realized what I was talking about then. So it's fascinating, but
yeah.
time will tell. I can't tell the future.
Well, maybe it's something like a diary, you know, this podcast. So you put you go through pages back to this date, and you think like, oh well, at the time I was thinking this. So maybe yeah, that's actually a very nice, interesting thought that this is recorded, and I can listen back to it and think in a few years, oh, this was
Yeah,
what I thinking at the time. Yeah,
exactly.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Well,
Hmm.
thanks so much for your time. I do appreciate it
Oh,
very
Yoshino,
much.
I thank you for your time. Well, this was really great experience. Thank you very much.
All right,
Perfect.
thanks so much, man. Oh, wait, before you sign off, let me just I'm just gonna stop it right here, but stay